They accused me of stealing a diamond ring in a ballroom packed with cameras, donors, and the kind of chandeliers that make you stare like a tourist. $1 billion sat between us like a loaded weapon's safety off. Be honest with me for a second. If 500 people turned to watch you get branded a thief, what would you do? I can still taste the room. And yes, rooms have flavors when the power is stacked to the ceiling. Gold trim, crystal glassware, laughter pitched just high enough to be heard by the camera's waiters gliding like they were on rails. They sat me 3 chairs left of the spotlight, not by accident, not when every seat is choreography. My name card traveled down the table at the last minute. A small thing that isn't small at all. The Stonewells swept in with that ease old money wears like cologne, the matriarch's pearls ticking together, when she moved the patriarch nodding like a pastor who knows the sermon you came to hear. They had courted my company for a year, called it a historic partnership, told reporters our science would change the world, and privately hinted that their signature would change our valuation. What they didn't say, at least not out loud, was that they needed the deal more than we did. That kind of need hums under the marble if you've learned how to listen. The wine arrived like a test. Burgundy for the donors to my left, a bottle you whisper about, so you don't sound like you're bragging, and for me a different label, cheaper vineyard, wrong year. Not a mistake. A message. Not for you. The server avoided my eyes, which told me even more than the bottle did. You know what I mean, there are 1,000 ways to tell someone they don't belong without saying a word. I've learned to file those moments like evidence I might need later, not to mope over, but to measure the room with. Then the sound of silverware and networking cracked in half. My ring is gone, the matriarch announced, voice sharp enough to chip the crystal. Not a question. Not a quiet aside. A proclamation. Heads turned in unison, phones slipped up like periscopes. She didn't check, the carpet didn't look at the server who'd passed behind. Her chair didn't do anything human like patting pockets and muttering, "Oh shoot, where did I put it?" No. Her eyes found me. The only black woman at the table, the woman whose research pipeline they'd praised in press releases, the one whose company kept getting described with words like meteoric and inevitable. She was the last one near the restroom, the matriarch said with the lovely confidence of a person who has never been told no and believed it was the end of the world. Then to a server who froze in place, check her bag. Pause. Feel it. That hush that hits a room when everyone senses a performance is about to start, and they're not sure if it's comedy or blood sport. There's a way people perform righteousness when they think the crowd is already with them. Posture, a little taller chin, a little higher tone, just loud enough so the phones catch every word. Somebody behind me stage whispered, "You know how they are, the you hanging in the air like a bad smell." And just like that, I was on trial at a table set for a celebration I had paid for in years of work. Clinical trials, sleepless nights, quiet, wins, no one photographs. I pulled my own purse onto the linen because no one was going to put their hands inside my life. The zipper rasped open like a saw. Keys, lipstick, phone, leather notebook with notes from a meeting that morning about a pediatric protocol I cannot stop thinking about, even when I'm cooking eggs. No ring. Of course, no ring. But guilt in rooms like that isn't about evidence, it's about optics, and the optics they wanted were simple. A black woman accused, a black woman doubted, a black woman forced to justify her presence in the exact chair she was invited to fill. Then a voice from a doorway I hadn't noticed. "Excuse me." A janitor, gloves still on posture, a little unsure, holding a diamond that could blind you under the lights. "I found this on the bathroom floor," he said. careful, like the truth might break if he moved too fast. The room went quiet the way a theater goes quiet at the end of the wrong act. Faces drained, lips opened and closed, and out came the word that always arrives to scrub a stain without touching the fabric. Misunderstanding. They didn't say sorry. They didn't say we were wrong. They said misunderstanding, as if grammar could mop up humiliation that was very much understood. I didn't argue. Arguing would have served them, not me. I took out my phone, typed one clean line, sent it, put the phone away. That was it. No monologue, no finger wag, no I know my rights. Sometimes power is a whisper, not a drum. And sometimes silence cuts better than a speech. If the story ended there, we might all go home irritated and pretend we'd learned something. But humiliation on camera doesn't die in the dark. It metastasizes. By morning, the clip of my purse being unzipped had 1 million views, the caption calling me a thief like it was a fact. Talk shows booked experts who'd never met me to speculate about my board, my cash burn, my goodness, my temperament. Yeah, that happened. Do you think that's fair? Then a second clip hit. The janitor with the ring, the line cooks nodding the truth, sitting there like a brick in the middle of the highway. Comment sections turned into courtrooms with no judges. Words like racism and elitism and gaslighting fell like hammers in every thread. The Stonewells stepped to microphones with smiles polished by generations of being forgiven in advance. A misunderstanding, they repeated, soft as velvet, sharp as a blade. A senator did a tidy cable news lap and said how he respected my success, but leaders control their emotions, and I swear you could hear the dog whistle from space. If it were you, what would you have done? Call a press conference, write a statement, sue everyone in sight or try to forget it, and sign the deal for the sake of shareholders. I don't ask to test you. I ask because I had to ask myself the same questions in a mirror that didn't blink. Here's where the twist starts, and no, this wasn't an accident. It was a choice I had been building toward for years. A journalist I trust started pulling filings and threads. Off-balance sheet loans stacked like a nervous card trick. Real estate over-leveraged with a smile. Credit lines humming like a refrigerator in a house no one maintains. The $900 million wasn't fireworks for a victorious march. It was oxygen for a structure that had been quietly choking. We knew some of this. My lawyers had packed protections into the term sheet like we were securing a life raft, not buying a yacht. But after the accusation, after the word misunderstanding tried to stand in for respect, I understood the deal differently. It wasn't a partnership. It was a referendum on what I would swallow for the sake of optics. Pattern interrupt. Not every fight is a speech, and not every win is a headline. Sometimes the work looks like a single sentence at midnight. The night before the signing, that grand ballroom was being polished again. Cameras rehearsed their angles. A string quartet warmed up with a little Vivaldi, because people love to hear the familiar when they're nervous. My tea went cold on a coaster, while I stared at the window and counted back from 10 the way I learned to do in residency. Then I made a phone call. 7 words. Withdraw your funds tomorrow morning. All of them. Not to the Stonewells. Not to the press. To the partners who actually move the world. London, Riyadh, Singapore. People whose money doesn't pose for society pages, and whose trust I had earned slowly, boringly, by being right more than I was loud. I didn't cajole. I didn't threaten. I asked with the weight of years behind the ask. They listened. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. The day of the signing arrived wrapped in velvet. The patriarch's smile was set to broadcast. The matriarch's ring was on her finger like a talisman, her hand resting on it so often it looked like she was keeping time. The contract sat in a leather folder, the color of old mahogany, $900, $1,000, written on the cover sheet, in numbers that make strong people blink. I walked in last. Not late, not rushed, just precise. The way you enter an OR when everyone else needs to feel you're steady more than they need to see your face. The patriarch stood, extended his hand, delivered the line his comms team had workshopped. Tonight marks a historic partnership. I didn't shake his hand. I didn't sit. I took the microphone, not dramatically, just firmly, and said, "There will be no deal today. No snarling, no point scoring, just a clean incision." Silence fell in layers, then ripped open, as 40 reporters remembered their jobs. The patriarch's smile twitched like a mask when the strings get tangled. "No deal," he repeated, pulling the words like taffy into a question. "You're making a mistake. Think of what you're walking away from." "I'm not walking away," I told him, and it wasn't scripted. It just rose like something old and unafraid. "I'm walking over." It landed like a bell in a church where they forgot the schedule. Phones sprang up. I heard someone to my right whisper, "She's trending already." The market doesn't wait for statements. While we stood there looking at each other, lines of credit froze. Screens in the back row blinked from green to red. Banks checked their exposure and decided they'd checked enough. A junior staffer grabbed a laptop and then remembered his hands. The patriarch's phone vibrated so hard, he set it down like it might burn through the table. The matriarch squeezed that ring until her knuckles went white. You might hear this and think revenge. You might taste pettiness in the back of your mouth. Ask yourself what a deal is worth when the price includes swallowing your own dignity in public. Would you sign that contract? Do you think that's fair? I slid the leather folder toward them with 2 fingers, because sometimes you give a gesture back to the person who thought they owned gestures, and then I walked out into a night that smelled like rain, even though the forecast said dry. The press caught me at the door, because of course they did. "Are you canceling the deal?" Why now? Because respect is not negotiable. What happens to the Stonewells? What always happens when a house is built on sand? I didn't say it with heat. Heat wasn't necessary. Gravity was doing the work. By evening, the headlines were wearing new clothes. Black CEO cancels $900 deal. Stonewell Empire in free fall. Shares fell like coins down a well. Lawsuits lined up with polite little smiles. Creditors circled the way birds circle a field right before the rain starts. The clip of my bag being searched kept playing, but now the caption had changed tone. People cut my "I'm walking over" into remixes because the internet can't help itself, but under the jokes I heard something true. A sound I've learned to recognize from years of young folks writing me messages at 2 a.m. It was relief. A pressure valve hiss. The knowledge that maybe, just maybe, you don't have to sign whatever paper a room demands, if the price tag includes your self-respect. A few days later, the janitor asked if we could meet. We sat on a bench outside the hospital where his wife was in for some tests, a paper bag of fries between us, because that's what he'd grabbed on his break. He told me he'd hesitated in that doorway, that he knew men like him, like me, once don't always get to interrupt stories wealthy people tell about themselves, and that his mother would have pinched his ear if he kept quiet. We laughed. We got quiet. He said, "The truth was just there." I picked it up. Tell me that isn't exactly right. Now comes the controversial part people argue about in my comments, and I want you there arguing with courage, not cruelty. Should there be consequences beyond market math when you accuse someone publicly and you're publicly wrong? Should a senator with a pocket full of dog whistles be called out by his own party instead of given another Sunday show slot? Should institutions that wield etiquette like a sword, but forget ethics, lose our collective benefit of the doubt? I have my answers. You have yours. Say them out loud. If it were you, what would you have done? Would you have signed for the sake of jobs and dividends, hoping respect would grow back later like a scab, or would you have said no in a way that could not be misheard? I don't pretend the choice was simple or that the aftermath was easy. Investors called to ask if I was okay and also to ask if I had lost my mind sometimes in the same sentence. Friends I loved told me quietly they would have taken the money and tried to fix it from the inside. Strangers sent emails using words I won't repeat. But when I put my head on the pillow at night, I sleep under a roof held up by an old promise I made to a younger version of me. The one who stood in lobbies where security guards looked me up and down like I was there to deliver takeout, instead of data, the one who learned to keep a straight face when men called me sweetheart, and then asked me to explain the math they never bothered to learn. I told her one day she would choose the rooms instead of begging to enter them, and I keep my promises. So here's where I make a different ask. The next time you're in a room where the obvious story leaps up and points a finger, check the floor. Be the person who says, wait, not because you love drama, but because you love the truth more than you love the show. The next time a clip pops up on your feed with a caption that makes you feel 12 different things at once, ask whether the camera arrived before or after the truth. And if you wear a ring worth more than someone's car, and it slides loose in a bathroom where the lighting is bad, and you blame the person the crowd most expects to blame, ask yourself what you owe when you're wrong. Not just a statement, a cost. I'll end where I began because endings and beginnings often rhyme. They accused me of stealing in a room designed to shrink people like me to scale. They thought humiliation would loosen my signature hand. They forgot silence can be a blade if you hold it at the right angle. I didn't throw a drink. I didn't shout. I wrote one sentence, made one choice, left one contract unsigned, and walked over. If this hit you, if it made you angry or proud or both, tell me in the comments what line stuck, what choice you would have made, what rooms you've had to walk over just to keep your own name intact. Do you think I was right to cancel the deal, or do you think I should have signed and fought from the inside? Drop your city so I know where you're watching from. Share this with someone who needs to hear that respect is not negotiable, and subscribe if you want more true stories where the power flips and the truth doesn't ask permission. Your turn now. I'm listening.